Good afternoon. I'm Lucas Panzica from the 104.5 The Zone studios. Titans are not on the practice field today. They were yesterday in preparation for Week 1, Sunday afternoon at the Chicago Bears. Week 1 of the college football season wrapped up Monday night. Boston College winning 28-13 at Florida State. The Seminoles off to an 0-2 start to the season after beginning as the number 10 team in the preseason AP poll. Waiting on an updated AP poll, which should come out any moment. The coaches poll is out. The Tennessee Vols rising 3 spots up to number 12. In NFL news, the 49ers are reportedly finalizing left tackle Trent Williams' new contract as the 36-year-old's holdout officially, or not officially, but seems to be coming to an end. For all your foundation repairs and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's Tuesday here on Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. We're going to be talking a lot about the Tennessee Titans today as Brian Callahan was on the OTP, the official Titans podcast, talking to Mike Keith and Amy Wells, previewing the Chicago Bears game. And you know it's Tuesday. You know what that means, that in the 2 o'clock hour, we're going to be talking to Coach Mack. And we're going to be talking about all things Titans and Bears, and you will not want to miss that. You can join the conversation on the Zone TV chat over on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, or call in. We want to hear from you about this game coming up on Sunday, the season premiere for the Tennessee Titans, 2024 Tennessee Titans.
And Coach Callahan.
And Coach Callahan.
Yeah, man, this is big.
Yeah, the season premiere is coming up on Sunday, 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, so call in at 615-737-1045. Blaine, I don't like leaving things undone. And I've always been taught you got to finish what you started. And there were some.
Yeah, that's what she said.
There you go. That's what she said. I like it.
No, that's what Reed told me. She said.
Oh, that's what Reed said.
Hey, nice.
There was a lot of stuff from the University of Tennessee football matchup, but their victory over University of Tennessee Chattanooga that we didn't really get to touch on. That I just kind of want to do a little quick wrap up in this first segment, and I want to start with Brew McCoy. Because he's a guy that you've talked about a couple of times since I've been on the show, but a couple of times leading into this season, where it looked like he lost weight. And and I mean that not in the physical sense, because obviously he was showing up his midriff and the six-pack that he's been working on, right. But he looked faster on the field, and that was a big thing for Brew McCoy.
Yeah, quicker. For sure. I don't know how much faster. I wasn't out there, but I think he was advised to maybe not bulk up like you're a bodybuilder and more look like a wide receiver. And you'll always have the strength and power, but there's different ways you have to lift. And so he probably didn't like his draft grade. He's a high-profile player, 5-star guy from the West Coast. So that was great advice to him. And now he looks like he's coming in and out of his break, coming off an injury, too. So you wonder how much that had to do with he had a little more free time and probably had conversations with people who were advising him. And, he followed through with that and with Tennessee's help. So, yeah, he looked, every bit like, we thought he would look. But he didn't look as bulky. He still was ripped. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And he's still going to be a powerful guy. And his game is about, I can beat you deep, but my game is built on running routes, running over you. Now it's making you miss. So I like what I saw.
The Nico only had 4 attempts, 20-plus yards down the field. And he was 2 for 4 for 96 yards at a 24 yards per attempt on his deep throws. And obviously, I think there were a couple left on the table due to miscommunication. But I thought it was
misses not by him, but I guess it was more who missed those post
made by the wide receivers. So I want to ask what you think about this. It doesn't really seem like this offense has a Jalen Hyatt per se, the guy that can be Deshaun Jackson running down the field and burn everybody in his path. So do you think that they're going to be focusing more on the intermediate passing?
Right, and this is where I disagree with you.
Okay.
Here's the reason why. And it's looking at what the defense was actually doing to them. You can't just look at the stats and say, okay, they didn't throw as deep, so now is that going to be part of their game? No, they were playing quarter coverage. Their whole scheme by Chattanooga was not to beat us deep.
Gotcha.
We're going to let you catch everything, and if we come up and miss a tackle, so be it. But we're not letting you just run by us. And that still happened, by the way. Horrible technique by those players. Not just, I don't know if they would have been able to make a play anyway. They're just so much more talented than them. But I think that was more the reason. I think when you play the Alabamas and the Georgias, they're going to say, hey, we got you. We're going to mano. So those plays will be available in one-on-one matchups. So I thought it was more scheme-related than anything else, why they didn't go over the top much more. So that's the part that the numbers can't tell you unless you watch the game and you see that they were playing quarter coverage and they were not going to give up, at least on the outside, they were trying not to give up those deep splash plays. And that's why I said I didn't like Chattanooga's scheme, because they were going to dink and dunk you and then they were going to wait till you then, okay, well, we're going to try to, press you and get into man-to-man and see what happens, and they never did. They ran the same thing the entire freaking game. They played quarters coverage as well as cover two. So they were not going to let them beat them deep and just, they still happen. I mean,
you had mentioned something yesterday off air about the wide receivers lining up close to the sideline and the defensive back playing the sideline instead of towards the inside.
That's a coaching snafu.
Okay,
yeah,
so talk a little bit about that.
Well, what happens is when they do the wide split, and let's say you call cover 4, cover 3, in those coverages which you are deep, you're supposed to line up outside. Well,
and this is Tennessee's offense versus UTC's defense.
Right. Well, but this is something that's known amongst all those coverages. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter what team you're on.
Yeah.
So it's really about the player actually understanding common sense. If he's 2 yards from the freaking sideline and you're lined up outside, where is he going to run an outside route? When you line up outside, you're trying to take away an outside route. There is no outside route. So that's a coaching malpractice, and you should tell him to get inside. They should have done it all week. I don't know if they told him that or not, but this is what they should have told him. When they do the wide splits, if we call 4-3 or any coverage that lines up outside, you get inside. And no different on the inside, then you get a wide split, you line up inside. So, that's and that frustrates me. And now, not only did they do, there are major programs that do that against them.
Yeah.
So it's not just Chattanooga. And I'm talking about the Georgias, the Bamas. They all do it. It's like, what? That doesn't even make sense. Why would you get outside leverage? You get inside. Where else can he run a route? So that's common sense. I mean, in the pros, the counterpart to that is, let's say they don't ever line up wide like that. So, but in the pros is if they call an outside coverage and they line up and they cross your face, you then what they call convert. You convert. You don't try to stay outside and the guy's running all the way outside. You just convert and then playing from the inside out. So these are the things, and it goes on in high school, which you understand that in high school. But we're talking about major programs still doing that. And you know what? That's the part I miss about Saban. He's not stubborn enough. You know why? Because to still say, "What? No, you stand." No, because he wants to win more than he wants to be right. So he does his research, and man, I said that one year. He did it. The next year, he changed it. He changed his offense. Like he wants to run the ball down people's throat. Well, he spread it out. That's why he's the best.
Yeah,
he makes adjustments before everybody else. So, it's no fault of his own to Chattanooga. I was just saying, they get these wide splits, man. Why are you outside?
Yeah.
And that's why they kept running the post route, and that's why they was beating Thornton. Because he was lining up outside. Why were you outside?
Why do you think that Dante Thornton was used in his initial year with Tennessee in the slot? Because, you didn't hit
a button for me.
He's 6'5", 214, right? Now, supposedly at some point around 2019 or 2020, he ran a 4.43 40. So he's fast and everything. Yeah. And at 6'5", 214, that's pretty impressive. But why? Is it just that they thought that maybe he was one of the 3 best wide receivers and they just wanted 3 on the field, and it just happened that he had to go in the slot? Because it seems to me, 6'5", 214, you're on the outside. And it worked in this game.
Yeah. Well, he did that at the end of the season. They finally moved him last year. I don't want to say the last 3 or 4 games. Is that right, Reed?
He got hurt.
No, that was the last game. But he
got hurt against
outside.
Missouri.
He turned his whole game. He started balling at that point in time. And I had said the whole entire season, he's an outside receiver. I don't understand why they have him in the slot. Now, to your point, It might have been, and this is how coaches think, which is fine. They want to put their best 3 out there. And he was one of the best 3 in their eyes. So they tried to find a way to put him in a way that he can make plays. That guy in the slot in college for sure is usually the guy who can run routes, get in and out of breaks. It's more than just speed to it. And usually the tall guy is not kind of that guy.
Yeah.
And so once he got outside, I mean, the sky was the limit there. And I hated it because then he made the one-hander, touchdown, and then he dislocated his ankle or something. Yeah, so, but he was an outside. That's something I hit on the table every week, that he was an outside guy. And I get it. They want to play their best guys. And unfortunately, that wasn't a good fit for him. It really wasn't, for him to excel to the level of his talent.
Yeah. Wrapping up this UT discussion, Boo Carter, we talked about him with Ryan Callahan, previewing this matchup and everything, talking about his impact on this team. We kind of called him a star position on the defense. Mm-hmm. What did you see from Boo Carter in this first game? Because he did play a healthy amount of snaps, and he made some pretty big impressive plays here and there, and he's just getting started.
He, I'm gonna have to keep my powder dry. He showed some promise there. And he showed some physicality. I think he was on one of the blitzes as well. Now, he's got to continue to grow naturally when you're a young player. But, man, I think he can be something really good. And so I'm going to just kind of watch him as he progresses into the NC State game, and then you get an SEC, see if he continues to grow and get better and more comfortable at that spot and at that level. But he definitely has the talent and the I would say the nuances of that position are going to start coming to him real easy, because he did really effective things there. Now, it was against Chattanooga, so you just kind of going to wait. But, boy, he showed some promise. And there was other players that showed promise out there that was young, but he stood out, man. I'm already going to give him, hadn't even played it really, half of a season, let alone just one game, man. But his talent level is he's going to be a top 2-3 round guy.
Yeah,
for sure.
I agree with you there. Well, when we come back, we're going to check in with what Brian Callahan had to say on the official Titans podcast with Mike Keith and Amy Wells about this Bears matchup, about Will Levis, about this rushing attack. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Hey, Tennessee, summer's in full swing, and Cool Ray's here to make sure your home is ready for all the fun and the sun. And we've got some sizzling deals that will keep you comfortable and worry-free all season long. So ensure your family stays hydrated and healthy with free water quality testing, because nothing beats a refreshing drink of pure water on a hot summer day. And Cool Ray also offers a $149 main sewer line camera inspection. And right now, they also offer 15% off whole home dehumidifiers, as well as $500 off whole home generators. So let Cool Ray take care of your home so you can focus on making memories. So call us today and take advantage of those scorching hot deals. Cool Ray, your trusted partner for a cool and comfortable Tennessee summer. And all you have to do is visit coolray.com. Cool Ray, keeping Tennessee cool, plumbing right, and lights bright.
I love living in Middle Tennessee. We've got great restaurants, entertainment, sports, and one of the nation's top Ford dealers right here in our backyard. Two Rivers Ford. Remember that name. Two Rivers has been a staple in our community since 1983. They're locally owned. They have a non-commissioned sales team, and they sell below MSRP. They've been doing business with integrity for decades. Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealer.
Let's just jump right back in here on Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone, powered by All Four Seasons Garage Door. And we're going to go straight to the phone real quick because we have Trey in Nashville who wants to talk about Will Levis. Trey, you're on with Blaine and Zach.
Hey, how y'all doing today, guys?
Doing good.
Oh, happy Tuesday.
Happy Tuesday. Hey, I wanted to know, Blaine, so as far as ranking Will Levis in our division right now, from what you've seen, what would you rank him? And is this a ball or bust season for Will Levis? I know you talked about it. You're critical of him. I'm critical of him. Is this a ball or bust season for Will Levis? And I'll let y'all have it, and y'all have a good day. Thank you.
Well, I'm sure you got your opinion, too. I mean, naturally, C.J. Stroud's number one, right?
Right.
Okay. And then who else we got?
I'd say
Coach
Trevor
Richard.
Lawrence has number
He's gotta
two
be
by
two.
a thin margin.
Right.
I wouldn't say that he has a firm grasp on number two, but I mean, I think it's comfortable enough that you can't put Will Levis over him at number two.
Completely agree, yeah.
So it comes down to
Him and Richardson.
And I've seen more, I guess, snaps out of Will Levis. I've seen a lot of ups and downs and probably a worse offensive system, a worse, I guess, offensive scheme than what Shane Steichen has. But I've seen what Anthony Richardson can do when healthy, but that's kind of both these guys. It's almost like I would put Will Levis third and Anthony Richardson fourth, but there is a scenario where that could be easily flipped.
The other way around. Yeah. No, I completely agree. I completely agree with that analysis because we've seen more. You know, Richardson, just like you said, it's more projected what he can be. There's a lot of people saying in preseason, though, he hasn't looked so good. And I don't know what that really means.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much they are not running their offense and how much will he be a runner and not a more of a thrower and then do things on a consistent basis. I think he had some of the same issues just in a different way as Levis did with his accuracy in college because he was up and down. One game he did in UT, he throws for 400 yards, looks phenomenal. And then the next game he throws for 150 and, you know, it was horrible with the percentage of completion. So you just never know. But he's a dynamic player. But I'm going to go with Will Levis at 3. I've been critical of Levis, but also in a good way. I think he can be potentially a franchise quarterback now that he has an offensive head coach who's caters to quarterbacks, understanding schemes and system. Now he only has to fight his own resistance of who he really is and how he's wound up, which is, you know, he's a gunslinger. He wants to throw the deep ball. Can he take and be patient and take the dinks and the dunks sometimes when it's important and know when to pick his spots? And that's what you're looking for this year. He has all the tools. So we could talk about that just like Richardson has the tools. And I thought he was a top 4 quarterback coming out, but I didn't know he was this talented just with his arm talent.
Right.
Until you get to see him and you go, wow, this guy can make every throw and he's athletic. He's tough. So I don't want him tough like a linebacker, and that's what he shows sometimes because I want him to stay available other than that. And it's how he's wound up. And I think he's trying to curtail that because that's more of that college philosophy, which is great. But now you got to curtail that and make sure you stay available and then let your playmakers do all the work and you just get it to them. So I want to see if he can go through the maturation process of reading coverages too and make the right decisions. He's going to make some bad ones there, but you want to see that he can be eventually your franchise quarterback. And that doesn't mean he's going to get paid. And that doesn't mean he has to throw for 300-400 yards all the time and all those things. But is he making the right decisions? Is he leading in the right manner? I want to see him take the team down and win a game, whether it's a field goal or a touchdown, to see if he's got that clutch gene in him.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot that goes here, but I think he potentially can be that guy. I don't know if he is until I see it. I'm a see guy, then I'll say, yeah.
And you got to see it in a new offense, right? Like you saw the Miami game where he can be that guy, right?
Uh-huh.
But you didn't see it consistently in other games. But this is a better offensive system theoretically on paper, right?
Yes.
More weapons, better offensive line, everything. And so, because really, the Tennessee Titans were still ranked in the top 15 in explosive play rate. Now, that includes a lot of runs that probably fall under there. But in the entire NFL to still rank that high is really good. It's just that there just was no consistency in this offense, and that also came from no consistency in Ryan Tannehill, no consistency in Malik Willis, and no consistency in Will Levis from game to game. Huh?
Ain't no consistency.
Ain't no line. Yeah, I mean, there's just no consistency anywhere.
Right.
And it's up to Will Levis to take that next step because it is, you have to, when people ask about rankings and stuff, there is a little bit of projection inherently involved.
That's very true.
But I'm very much, if you're just asking me to rank the quarterbacks right now, I got to rank them that way because that's who they've shown us to be. Now, if you were asking me who had the higher ceiling, based on what we've seen and what you project, I think I'd be moving Trevor Lawrence down that list a little bit because what we've seen, I don't feel like that high ceiling is there that everybody had thought it was heading into his draft.
I agree. And I think you would move Richardson up there because he is super talented and his ceiling is much higher. But I don't know if he'll ever be able to reach that talent. If he does, he will be dynamic and special. Then it'll be the question, how long can he do it if he's still running as well as passing? And I just don't know if he'll be able to do that. But we shall see. But he's a super talented player.
Well, Brian Callahan, the head coach of your Tennessee Titans, he was over at the Official Titans podcast with Mike Keith and Amy Wells. That got released about this morning, but I think it was from last night, but it was released this morning wherever you get your podcast. And because me and you have talked a lot off air, on air, about that delicate balance of analytics and what you see on the field and how that matches up, what you see on, opposing defenses do, who you're playing against. Like, how does that all coalesce and work?
Yeah.
And Mike Keith asked Brian Callahan what constitutes a successful rushing attack, and he gave an answer that involved analytics and maybe some stats to focus on if you're a Titans fan or analyzing the team that we have not been focusing on for the most part.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I really get more into the carries can be skewed, if you're just looking for volume of carries because hopefully you have a lead and you're in the fourth quarter trying to run the ball a bunch to kill the game. And that's where those carries uptick a ton. I'm really more concerned about the yards per carry mark and our rush efficiency and our ability to generate some explosives. I'd love to be able to run the ball and hit a few explosives in there. And then the efficiency to us is always a really critical stat. Are we up above 50% in our efficiency, and are we earning positive EPA? We use EPA quite a bit, so are we earning positive EPA every time we hand the ball off, or is it a negative? And so all those things factor in, but I think we look a lot at the yards per carry, which means you're getting explosives and your ability to have positive EPA, so either percentage and or outcomes. So it's kind of nerdy, but that's what it is.
It is kind of nerdy, but that's it, like he said. But I've been a big proponent of EPA probably these last 3 or 4 years. I've talked a lot about it. So EPA does stand for expected points added. So that means, are you getting, the end result of the play, whether it's a run or a pass, giving you an extra increase in chances to score based on historical data? So basically, if you run a halfback toss on first down, they compare what you did to all the other halfback tosses on first down in a certain time frame. And how did you measure
other teams?
up? Yeah, other teams. All these other teams, the entire NFL. So how did you measure up on that halfback toss?
Or are they quantifying it as just the team you're playing that week?
No, they use down and distance, historical data, other teams, and all that kind of stuff, and compare it. So it's a comparison. So it's all this data. And did you add value to your team? Did you increase your team's chances to get points on that drive, on that particular play? Like, are you rushing the ball? When you rush the ball on first down, are you efficiently running it? And it's not just, are you getting 10 yards or 1 yard? It does that play that you just ran in that moment in time against that defense, in that down and distance, did it add value? And it's based on historical data, right? And current data too.
But I have a question real quick.
Okay.
When they run this data, the data doesn't tell you that, Peter Skoronski missed a block or this play would have been efficient.
Well, it
See,
does and it doesn't. So
Okay,
there are.
It can do both, not in sports. See, that's the difference. It can do both.
I'm not saying that this particular stat does, but there are stats that go into trying to figure out what is what. So there's like for that would be maybe yards before contact, or that'd be rush yards over expected. There's stuff like that there's other stuff that goes into it. Mm-hmm. But based off historical data, which is it's a long, big list, that's what EPA is involved. Now, success rate is, did you gain the right amount of yards on your down and distance? So, 20% is like a certain amount. Did you gain, like on 3rd and 5, you need to gain 5 to get a first down. Like, did you gain the yards you're supposed to gain? Now, this is just one piece of the puzzle, because obviously yards per attempt is good. I mentioned yards before carry, before being touched. You have yards after contact. You have rush yards over expected. So all these different things play into it. But it was interesting to me to hear that they use EPA per play a lot. And that's, let me tell you something, Blaine. Brian Callahan was on the Athletic Football Show around May. Okay, at the end of May. Mm-hmm. And he said there's no bigger nerd and no bigger proponent of analytics in football than Bill Callahan in the building. Bill Callahan, a man who has seen a lot of his time, has experience on the field, and does like, he is the biggest nerd in the building and uses all this stuff. So there is value, but he's a key guy because he has seen it. He's experienced it. He's seen what works, and now he's using another layer. And that's what analytics is to me, is just using another layer of information to make informed decisions, to make informed game plans.
Oh, no. Now, that's what I said. Going into games, that's why I said quantifying it. Going into games, that's what they should be doing. But it doesn't tell you who missed a block, and that's why it didn't work. So when you go look at the data after the game, it doesn't tell you who didn't execute and why it didn't work or did work. That's the whole issue to me with analytics. So the play was supposed to work, and they're supposed to win a toss, as you use that as the example. Yeah. Well, it's not telling you such and such didn't miss the crackbound block or the receiver to make sure that they got the free lane to go down there. It's not telling you. All it tells you, it didn't work. See, so the execution of what you designed, still the human element comes into play of why it did or didn't work.
Yeah.
So how do you filter through that when you're going into the game plan? Because when you say all the data, it doesn't tell you when you do that too, it doesn't tell you who missed or who made the blocks. Maybe your guys aren't as good or better than those guys.
I can't speak for every NFL team, but if I were running a coaching staff that was using analytics, okay, and I would say, here's the data I would present to you. Here are 5 key things that I found in the data. And most of these analytics department also watch the film. They have access to certain film and all the cut-ups and all this kind of stuff. And here's some 5 key facts. The coach then would probably have a film guy that says, okay, they're saying that their rushing attempts on first down aren't netting positive EPA. So go find me all the first down rushing attempts and let's see what the issue is. So that's how I would approach it. I would assume that probably a guy like Brian Callahan does.
Right, because he's seen everything.
If I'm coming up with that, he probably is.
Right, of course.
Now, depending on if you like analytics or not, you may get that list from your analytics nerds, right? Your guys in the broom closets, wherever you may stuff them.
I don't think there are people who don't like analytics. Well, let's start there, because if you are a coach and you're dumb enough not to use data that someone's giving you, now you can then critique if it's exactly what it says it is. But I think you want to use every layer of things to give you an advantage as a coach that's available to you. So now you need to dig deep into, do we have the players to actually execute like this data is telling us?
Well, I think there are coaches who kind of get the list every morning or list every week and just kind of toss it to the side.
Well,
I think
maybe they think they know more than the data.
Well, there are those, but then sometimes you can maybe help your young quarterback if you did certain things like play action plays more and this and that. And play action is a big one for me. Listen, play action is not the perfect pass play. But more often than not, it's been proven that it works. Does that mean you need to spam play action and never run the ball? Obviously not. You don't have to have a successful run game. You just have to have a run game because you got to have just the threat, the little bit of the mind of the defense to make them just pause just for a second to maybe get it open. Does it work every time? No. But the data shows that there is enough evidence that play action works more often than not, and especially for young quarterbacks, it works really well. So, if you have a guy maybe like a Will Levis in a system where you actually have a running back, maybe you should be using play action a little bit more than what they did, because last year they weren't using play action at a high rate. Don't have the exact numbers, but I just know that off the top of my head. But they just weren't using it as a high rate. So that's...
And we had Derrick Henry?
You had Derrick Henry.
And we didn't do it.
Didn't do a lot of it. Now, they did a lot of just running the ball, and that did not work out for them on first down. They were in tons of long downs, second down distances, and all that kind of stuff because it was just ineffective. And sometimes it's not about, like I said, even if you go from first and 10 and you run the ball. Well, it could be a good play. I know people don't like run, pass, but if you end up at 2nd and 5, that's really good. But if you continue to run into loaded boxes and 1st and 10 at an 80% clip and you got one of the worst second down and distances in the league, it's time to maybe change up something.
Right, but see, I don't need analytics. This is what I said last year. I don't need that to
Someone last year needed analytics on this
all
football
I kept
team.
saying was like, well, how about us put Derrick Henry and fake to him and then throw the ball?
Yeah, someone
it's
last year in Mike Vrabel's coaching suite needed some analytics.
Well, ultimately it came down to him because he's the head coach.
Yeah.
So that's coaching malpractice in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's move on to Amy asked Brian Callahan about Will Levis's main challenges versus his Bears secondary coming up.
Yeah, it's a good defense. I wish we got to open up against like Southwestern Missouri State, so we could really get our bearings. But no, we got to go against the Chicago Bears and that defense. That's they got really
different Bears.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, you did.
But I just think that he's going to have to be smart with the ball. The name of the game usually in this first week or two of the season is how well you take care of the football, how much you minimize your own mistakes. There's an element of we just need to do our jobs first and need to worry about what we can do and not necessarily worry as much about them, because that's where sometimes the mistakes happen. You try to do too much, and that's what wins and loses these opening couple games. This is probably the first 3 weeks of the season is how well do you just execute what you're good at, and that's what I'm going to ask of Will, is just do the things he's good at and manage the game from that standpoint and keep the ball in our possession and make sure we're making good decisions and completing the football, and then we'll be aggressive when we need to. But there's definitely a don't beat yourself in the first week, and that's going to be a big part of it is playing smart football.
That was Brian Callahan talking about what Will Levis's main challenge versus Bears secondary, and I think a part of that quote or a part of that answer that people are probably going to overlook a little bit because they're going to hear just go out and do what you do, Will Levis, and all that stuff, is game management. And we have talked about it more often than not between us about Will Levis. You talked about it just a little bit earlier today, talking about how important it is for him to manage the game. Against the Bears secondary, I'm not as scared of the Bears secondary as I am the Bears pass rush. So it's the same thing. Get the ball out quick, make good sound decisions, because sometimes that pass rush can be there quicker than you think. And I really have enjoyed that they are trying to get him in a field general Joe Burrow mindset.
Yeah, and well, that's why I like Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
See, because he has the discipline to take what the defenses give him, and then eventually, being a former defensive guy, the defense gets frustrated, and then they go on attack mode, and then now is the time to unleash the big Burrow, the big gun, Levis. And so because you keep moving in chains, the defense starts saying, well, dang, we can't even stop them, especially if that goes on 2 or 3 drives back to back to back. So you got to understand what the defenses are giving you and take it and let those guys. It's like, here's what a quarterback really is. And they'll say, oh, he's a, managing quarterback. Whatever. That's the guy I'll actually want. You're like a point guard, and your job is to get it to your playmakers. That's it. However you want to do it, whether it's be patient or throwing the long ball, throwing the intermediate, throwing the short ball. Oh, dinking, dunking it to your running back who then makes a guy miss and takes it 80. You get counted for 80 yards. That's the job of the quarterback. And sometimes, some people just want to give it the little flash because they're the quarterback. But you got to learn to manage the game if you want to be around this game for a long time.
Yep. When we come back from the break, we'll talk more about what Brian Callahan had to say again about his team preparing for the Bears. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. Blaine and Zach finishing out hour one here. 104.5 The Zone. All 4 seasons Garage Doors, who powers up this show. The Zone TV chat has been very good. Got a lot of questions. Just so the people in the chat know, if we don't get to your question today, I write down the quesquestions in the chat. So I can save them and make sure they at least get answered on this show.
We don't have our analytic computer guy.
I need that. But it's been a great show so far. We've had a good discussion. We've been talking about analytics and all that kind of stuff. But you said something before the break that I kind of wanted to go a little bit further into. As a defensive back or a defensive player in general, is the dink and dunk more frustrating than the deep passes completed on you?
Yes, absolutely.
Why is that? Is that just because you're trying your best, and that's one play versus 5 plays?
Here's the perception from a fan's perspective.
Okay.
They see the home run ball and they go, "Oh man, we're up 14-0." They had 2 good plays. The rest of the time we dominated. Watch this. What's the odds they're going to do that the rest of the game?
Right.
That's why that doesn't matter to the defensive guy. We could have been in all our blitz, guy slipped and fell, boom, touchdown, right? But the dink and dunk, you feel like you can kind of control that, and they are still moving the ball methodically, using up 7, 10, 12 minutes of a game. And that is frustrating because you feel like you can't stop them. And so then you will then unarm yourself. When I say that, I'm talking about the defensive coordinator then start saying, okay, we're going to stop this. And then you start going after them, and then that can make you vulnerable as well.
I was about to say, so does that mean like that frustration, is it like pent up and then it causes someone to make mistakes they normally wouldn't have in a game? Or is it just
I wouldn't say mistakes? I think you're more vulnerable to mistakes because you are leaving guys in positions where it's one-on-one. And we all know in the NFL, the guys are so talented. Sometimes it's not gonna work in your favor. It's just not. You could have a great coverage and they throw the back shoulder throw.
Gotcha.
What are you supposed to do with that?
Right.
Nothing. You were right there. So that's where the frustration is. At some point, you go after them, and then that's when you throw the deep ball.
What do you think about, this is totally off subject, but what do you think about when like a wide receiver falls and then a DB celebrates? Because he didn't catch the ball, because he like slipped and fell. And then you see it all the time, and it's maybe not all the time, but you see it a lot, that like a DB will be running with the wide receiver and the wide receiver slip and falls, or their feet get tangled up, and then he's like, celebrating no catch, and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, a lot of that is because the corner's out on an island. That's pretty much who you're talking about there. And, everybody sees when you get toasted. So at times the cornerback has to have this mentality that continue to throw over here and I'm eventually get one.
Gotcha.
And that's the mentality. So that's why those guys do that, really, because the game is now, in the offense's favor as much as they throw the ball, and all the penalties are a favor with them, so you want to feel like you did something special and kind of make yourself continue to believe you are that guy.
Gotcha.
Whether it's just one play or not. I mean, it's eventually going to come back around, and, you can go ask Snead. He's gotten beat for some touchdowns, but he also, I saw him up Tyreek Hill by the neck in the playoff game.
Yeah.
See? Then told him, hey, man, this ain't happening today. And not those words. So, you got to, your persona a little bit out there in the corner when you playing man-to-man in the National Football League, man. You got to have some big cojones.
Amy continued to ask Brian Callahan about the challenges the Bear defense presents, but shifted it to how Bill Callahan and the offensive line is approaching this game against the Bears defense.
Ooh.
They know what they're in for. I mean, that's the one thing about having a coach that's been coaching for 40 plus years. He knows how to do it. And so that much I do know is that they will be prepared for what they're about to face, both schematically and in intensity. I think all those things will be, we'll be ready to match whatever it is we're seeing and hopefully exceed it. But it is. You got a team that's trying to make a mark. They have a lot of enthusiasm around their building, and they should. They are a very good football team. And our job is to not let that get off the ground week one. They can have it after us, but week one I'd like to not let them have all that momentum. But it's a tough task. Going on the road, that place will be loud. Chicago's a great place to play. It's a great football city. They're excited about their team. They got a young quarterback that everyone wants to see. So, it's going to be a pretty hellacious environment.
The Bears' defense is stout, no doubt. I mean, Montez Sweat, Andrew Billings, Javon Dexter, Tremaine Edmonds, Tyreek Stevenson, Jalen Johnson, Kevin Byard, obviously. So they got playmakers at every level of the field.
They got Walker too, right? Didn't he use play?
Yeah, DeMarcus Walker's there.
Mm-hmm.
They got plenty of players that can give this offensive line that is still gelling, for the most part, a lot of fits. So I think it's interesting when people talk, because there was people in the chat who were like, is this Bears defense really that good? And all this stuff. And listen, the Bears defense was bottom 30 throughout the first 8 weeks. Now, this is a lot of new players were on this team. Maybe you need to be thinking about that about your Tennessee Titans. A lot of new players were on this team last year. Then they go and trade for Montez Sweat. And then they are top 10 in every category, top 5 in almost every category.
From that point on.
From that point on, from weeks 9 through 18.
So what did they finish?
They finished
Top
in
15?
the top 15.
Yeah.
So, but when you talk about the impact of just one player, but it's not just Montez Sweat. You're talking about the halfway point through the season when everything starts clicking. The Eberflus system starts for these new players and all this kind of stuff, and they all start filling each other out. It's more than just Montez Sweat, but this defense is really good, and it's a great test for this offensive line.
Yeah, they kind of turned the corner, as you mentioned, week 8. I didn't know it was that soon. I thought it was more like week 10, but they definitely were a top 5 defense from that point on, from week 10 for sure. A lot of people were talking about them around the league and how they had came together so quickly and were a dominant defense. One thing they said that happened, though, they stopped playing a lot of zone. They started attacking.
Yeah.
And that means to me that they were blitzing. I have not watched them yet, so I will watch them towards the end of the season and see what they look like. But they were a dominant style defense towards the end of the season, so they can continue that. Boy, it's going to be an interesting game on both sides of the ball because I think I don't know what people think. I think a lot of people think it's going to be a high scoring game. I'm going to assume that it's going to be a low scoring game.
I'd say probably if both teams entered 20. I'd be very surprised at the end of the game. When we come back, we'll keep on talking about the Bears and Titans matchup. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. It's NFL week, and FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, has a special offer to kick us off. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. Just visit FanDuel.com/Zach. That's FanDuel.com/ZACH to download America's #1 sportsbook. Must be 21 and older and present in Tennessee. Full price of NFL Sunday Ticket will be automatically charged seasonally after free trial. No refunds, terms, restrictions, and embargoes apply. Gambling problem? Call Tennessee Redline 1-800-889-9789. Hour number 2 here on Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Yeah.
Powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors. Coming up next segment is Coach Mac coming in here for his weekly talk with us. Always brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, Nashville's most trusted Ford dealership. And Blaine, I want to finish out. We're going to be talking about the Bears and the Titans the rest of the week. We got so many topics and so many interesting facts about this matchup. But I wanted to get into some roster specifics that Brian Callahan talked about on the Official Titans podcast. Because Amy asked him, can 5 tight ends be active on game day? And he had a great response.
Whoa!
Saga.
No, they can't. I mean, no, they.
Let's dumb this back down.
Yeah. No, they can't.
It's a good question.
It is. I mean, it would. If you went at 5 tight ends, you'd be really thin somewhere else. Probably they fill similar special teams roles, so you probably are given and taken at linebacker or safety. Those 3 positions sort of make up your core special teams. So no, 5 is a lot. It's just going to be a determination between the 4th active tight end and the 5th active linebacker, or the 5th or 4th active safety. That's just going to be a weekly gymnastics for us on where they factor in the game plan versus where they factor on special teams. So there could be weeks where they're both down and we only carry 3. Or there could be weeks where it's just one versus another, or sometimes injury sort of settles that for you. But it's a week-to-week thing.
So I thought that was interesting because he's talking about 3 tight ends are going to be active on game day. Your boy Nick Vanette's probably the 3rd one if you're just basing it off the unofficial depth chart. But I think it is interesting that there are going to be some games where he's choosing between not really the 5th tight end and the 6th linebacker, but the 4th tight end and the 5th linebacker or the 5th safety. And when you're talking about special teams and you're talking about these roster decisions, this is something I'm also going to ask Coach Mac, but I wanted to get your opinion on it. How important is it that they do something different on the field other than special teams, or how important is it that maybe this week you're playing this returner or this kicker or this, coverage scheme on special teams, and this guy gives you a competitive advantage?
Well, I don't know if you can really say that a player gives you competitive advantage on special teams.
Is that just being a special teams hater?
No. I made my oats on special teams.
Yeah.
That's how I made the actual roster. What I'm saying is the only player that really has an impact like that is the actual returner.
Okay.
And so to me, that guy's always going to be up. So the guy who is blocking it, they are all interchangeable.
Gotcha.
So that's what I'm talking about, not necessarily the guy's impact. It was just like taking a 3rd string quarterback versus a 2nd string kicker. The kicker can win games. The 3rd string quarterback probably won't even play. So analytics should take you down these roads where 3 tight ends were always probably be the standard for me of them dressing, and based off your game plan. And as he mentioned, injuries, that will kind of help you as well. But I never thought 5 tight ends were going to ever dress.
Yeah.
You want some developing guys. If you got a veteran guy, so they do use 12 personnel. 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends at times, and they can always use a lineman to be if you want to run the ball.
Yeah.
So you got versatility there. If you didn't, or if someone got dinged up or injured in a game. No, I think what he's referencing there is, he said safeties, linebackers, and tight ends. He's really talking about the kick return.
Yeah.
Because you got to be able to play in space and be able to block. So those guys are those type of players that has size, they have speed. I think that's what he's referencing there. It's only my guess. So, yeah, no,
He mentioned
I think that was
injuries.
a big issue to me. I never thought they were going to dress 5 tight ends.
No. But I thought the other stuff about it was very interesting. Just him talking about the linebackers and what he's choosing between and the safety. Because I do think that's very interesting.
No, that's going to be.
I just wonder what's the differentiation between the linebacker, safety, and tight end that you're choosing in this situation. Is because let's say Josh Whalley has an ankle injury all week, kind of hampering him in practice. But he's good to go on game day. But do you maybe have a little bit more cautious, optimism, and you bring in a 4th tight end instead of the linebacker that week that can do the same thing on special teams? Is that how he's making
I think that's exactly what he was talking about.
Okay.
Yeah. And like he's deciding to dress him, but hey, man, I don't know how much he'll be able to go. Or does he determine, I don't dress Wiley, I dress the other tight end, and then we just keep rocking and rolling and we don't miss a beat.
Gotcha.
Giving him one more week, to heal or to be a better player with that injury. All guys, once the season starts, are playing with injuries. They're playing with nicks and everything else. Some are more severe than the others. But you must not forget that secret weapon, though. Mm-hmm. That's Toradol.
Just shooting it up.
Yeah. So, and they don't shoot it directly in there. Everything goes in the buttocks. So, so it's not going directly in there.
Mike Keith asked about the edge rotation and who is basically going to be stepping up behind Arden Key and Harold Landry.
It's gonna be those guys. It'll be Jalen Harrell will play. Caleb Murphy will play. We'll see how far Ali comes along. Those guys are all viable options. I think we got you got 6 guys for probably what's going to be 5 active spots on the game day roster, but what that rotation looks like will kind of be determined. But we're going to need those guys to help us and step in and play a role because it's hard to play every snap. If you're Harold and Arden. So we're going to need 2 more guys to be able to step up and play for us.
Well, he mentioned, and maybe he just misspoke, but he mentioned there were 6 guys fighting for 5, active spots, but maybe he's including someone off the practice squad, possibly. I guess maybe Khalid Duke is a guy that's that 6th guy, because they only have 5 guys on the 53-man roster that play edge. But I still am hesitant. And it sounds like, because he's the first guy mentioned, Jalen Harrell is the first guy coming off that field on these, any of these plays. And they think he could be a 3rd down guy. But this still is a rookie 7th round outside linebacker that you're relying on to spell and not lose a beat on defense. And I'm not saying that he can't live up to it or can't do it. I loved his tape and everything. But there is a considerable jump here for a 7th round pick, and they're putting a lot of responsibility on him in the spot. And do you have any concerns about that coming right out of the gate? Maybe this is something that's going to be an issue all season long at this edge rotation, and it's just constantly someone else is that 3rd guy in certain situations?
I would leave that up to the coaches. He was high on him before. But what I will say is, who's the 3rd guy for the Bears? We don't know. See, so every team is in kind of that situation. I think sometimes you got to pick your poison, and we're in that transition. They got, they're using a draft pick guy to actually, they were hoping it could be Weaver, but now it has to be, Harold. So I think that's what they're choosing. They feel like they can get by, and he's supposed to just give us some rest and a stopgap guy. The guys who start are the big money guys, and those are the guys making a dough. So they got to perform, but we want to have some, viable options if they aren't, if they want to rest and need a rest. So I would be a little more concerned with who's rotating with Sweat and Simmons besides Colburn.
Well, guess what?
Besides, I don't know who the other guy is.
Guess what? Amy actually asked that question. If 4 defensive linemen is enough, and that's our last one. Last question.
Yeah, we probably won't go in with 4. We'll probably elevate from the practice squad, most likely, just to get the 5th. We'll carry 5 most games with some version of 5D linemen for the active roster, just because you need those spots. So the answer is no. I don't feel comfortable with 4, and that's why we have the practice squad spots, and we can do some standard elevations. They each get a few of them, and then we'll go from there, and we'll see where the roster's at in 2-3 weeks.
So they're going to be carrying 5 most weeks, obviously, and they're going to be calling up someone from the practice squad. So there's Abdullah Anderson, Isaiah Aiton, newly signed James Lynch, and then also is that it? Is that it? I feel like I'm missing one. Nope, I think that's it. So those 3 guys right there are who they can elevate, and you can elevate a few games before you have to put them up on the roster and carry them. So it sounds like they're going to be kind of playing a game of chess and hot potato with this defensive line rotation, which for the 5th guy is probably a good use of your roster allocation for these 53 spots, don't you think?
Yeah. They're just really trying to play with the hand that they've been given, and hopefully it works out that the stud players stay healthy and do a lot of production and getting the majority of the reps. And these guys are supposed to be in for breaks along the way and still expect them to perform. Maybe not quite as high as the starters for sure, but at least where it's not where they see like it's a wink link. I think that's what you're really referencing. Harold coming up to me. I mean, what are your other options? To be honest, he's been consistent throughout training camp, and really he's performed at a level we've expected him because that's what he's done at practice, even in the scrimmages and in the games. So, that's what we're going to go with. I might have signed a veteran if it was me, but is he going to be better than him is probably what they are thinking. Yeah. I don't know. Could analytics help us with that?
They could. I mean, but you also are talking about when you're looking at the stats, pressure stats, who else was on the field and who were they playing against when they're getting these pressure stats and stuff. And there's something to be said for familiarity. You carried a guy this long on your roster. He was here last year, but he's part of a new regime, and he's been really good in preseason like Keandre Coburn. Bringing in another guy, that guy's going to have to learn your terminology, learn your system, learn how to communicate, and it may take him a little bit. Like, I wouldn't be surprised.
Like Ernest Jones, by the way, he's not probably going to start.
That's a great example. And he talked about it. He's like, it could take Ernest Jones 2 days. This is what Brian Callahan said. It could take Ernest Jones 2 days. It could take him 2 weeks. But he will get there. It's just how fast can he get there to supplant a Jack Gibby, which we know you could probably put him up on the field right away, and he's better than Jack Gibby, but he's got to know all the terminology, the communication, and all that kind of stuff, right? You just can't just throw him out there.
Well, especially because he's a quarterback of the defense.
Right.
It'd be different if he was a D tackle, D end. Now, we can throw him out there.
Yeah.
Good example of this is Malik Willis. Did you see what LaFleur said?
Oh, no, I missed it.
Yeah. Well, we traded for a guy, a quarterback. He doesn't know our offense. We're still going to have to probably pull up Sean Clifford from the practice squad to be our 2 in the first game because it's not been enough time for him to learn our offense.
Right.
See, and that's the quarterback of the defense is the middle linebacker as well as the safety. So, and you got center and quarterback. Those guys, you can't just bring in at the last minute and think they're going to just voila in 5 days. That's why it's so remarkable of what Dobbs did. He did that in 7 days?
Well, he's a rocket
and a quarterback, right? See that is hard to do. I'm sorry, I don't care what you're talking about. Oh, all the plays are the same. Yeah, but somewhat, but the terminology and who's wearing what. Oh, nah, man. There's a lot of moving pieces there.
Yeah.
So those leadership positions and who are making the verbal calls and checks, those are always tough when you trade for guys like that or get him at the last minute.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk to Coach Mack about the Tennessee Titans' upcoming matchup with the Chicago Bears. He's brought to you by Two Rivers Ford. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. And this is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone.
Have you noticed how unreliable things have become these days? Like when someone tells you it'll be ready at 4 p.m. and it's not. People are really tired of that stuff. So if you had the unreliable vehicle repair shops, well, come on over to Eurofix. And Eurofix turns unreliable into reliable. And Eurofix will have your vehicle ready when it's really ready so you don't have to stand around waiting all freaking day. And Eurofix repairs all European cars with quality that beats the dealer and without the dealer pricing. And that's because dealer repair shops are designed to pay virtually all of the dealership's overhead. And that's a lot of moolah. And why would you want to pay for that? Well, a Eurofix Reliable also means a 3-year nationwide warranty plus a free loaner car with every repair appointment. So make sure you call ahead as loaner cars are very, very popular. So if you're tired of the unreliable repair shops, come on over to Reliable, and that'll be Eurofix. Family owned for 24 years. And all you have to do is just give them a call at 844-EUROFIX. That's right, 844-EUROFIX, or you can just visit them online at myEurofix.com. That's myEurofix.com. But I was telling Blaine, JoJo.
It's Blaine and Zach here on 104.5 The Zone, and when Return of the Mac is playing, you know what that means, that we are joined by Coach Mac of Titans Radio, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealership. And Coach, you got the Mac Talk is coming back tonight. Tell the people what time that is and what to expect from Mac Talk.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that, Zach. Mac Talk, this will be our 5th season. When they approached Brian and I about doing this 5 seasons ago, we said we wanted to make it a call-in show so that all the, on Tuesday, every Tuesday during the season, our fans can call in and talk, and then we'll give a little preview of what's going on for our game. We'll give a wrap-up on the previous game, and then we'll talk about the league. It's been very successful. I just like the interaction with the fans on the call-in show, and it's sponsored by Two Rivers Ford also, so looking forward to it. Tonight it'll be at 6 o'clock following 3HL every Tuesday during the season.
Well, you can interact with Coach Mac and ask him some Titans questions at 615-737-1045 when you call in for Mac Talk tonight at 6 p.m. Coach Brian Callahan talked this week about preparing for Caleb Williams and using some of his college tape. And when you go back and watch any college quarterback's tape to scout for defensive purposes, how much of that is actually translatable? Like for example, if Caleb constantly struggled with cover 3, how much does that influence a game plan on Sunday?
Well, when you're looking at quarterbacks collegiately, you're basically because everything that they're running is different in the collegiate game. What you look for is traits, and traits are what you look for. Unless you really know intricately what they are calling, what their reads are, those types of things that you can parse out. When you go to the school to visit, and that's the area scout's job too, is to bring that information back exactly as to what they were being taught, how they were being taught to do it. But when you start looking at it, just as a tape scout, and what you're looking for is traits. What kind of arm strength does he have? What kind of timing does he have? What platform does he throw out of? How accurate is he? All of those types of things. You can pretty much chart out, when you're watching those guys. So it's you bring in and you gather information, but it's a conglomerate of information, especially on quarterbacks. And you bring up a good point about you've got to know exactly what they're being taught. Let's just say, for instance, when they were looking at Malik Willis, when I did Malik Willis coming out, he's in an offense down there that's not going to be very, the offense itself, the setup won't be very transferable to the National Football League, but you look at the ability to throw the football, you look at the ability, to be balanced to throw it, you watch the athleticism. So there's different people that look at different things because you've got different information. Then you bring all that together, and that's how you make a decision.
Staying on defense with disruptive players like Simmons and Sweat up front, how would that influence how you organize the defense? Does that lend itself more to a 2008 style defense where you hardly blitz and it frees up your linebackers to be more gap sound? Or does it invite the idea of bringing extra pressure to create more chaos?
Well, I just having been a defensive coordinator and on the defensive side of the ball for a lot of years in this league, I can tell you any defensive coach.
Okay, well, it looks like we lost Coach Mac. Reed is going to try and get him back. But we were talking, Blaine, about trying to look at the college tape and trying to figure out if there's something that you can actually take away from it. In your mind, is there anything like that?
For me, a little bit, but I'm mostly looking at preseason.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's all you can really go by. And that's the part and the element that nobody knows how he'll respond in a game to coverages, new things, if he makes a mistake. And what all you're hearing about him, Caleb Williams, is that he's mentally already a pro.
Gotcha.
In all facets, which is scary to think about. When they say that means his maturity level is already a level. I think he was actually voted captain. I'm trying to recall. Was Marcus Mariota captain his rookie year?
Cannot recall. That's something I probably have purged from the mind palace here.
Right. So that's already telling you what people think. And I know he's a quarterback and everything else, but still to be voted the captain already is pretty impressive.
We got. Oh, I was about to
Coach
say
Mack left again?
Yeah, he said he was tired of hearing us talk, I guess, and he dropped off. No, we've lost connection. So Reed will let us know when he's back.
Yeah. But I mean, here's what Caleb Williams, he actually scares me based off what I saw in preseason. When I say that is, he looks like a wily vet already, and he almost plays the game really loose. So hopefully we can bait him into a mistake.
Yeah.
That we show him one thing because it hasn't been on film, just like they haven't shown everything on offense with all those weapons they have, Komet and all those receivers. So I'm hoping we can bait and switch him and get him to throw us one right in the bird basket.
Mac, we lost you there, but we were talking about the defense and about how Simmons and Sweat can maybe provide you a couple different avenues to go. And we're talking about being more gap sound with their linebackers or bringing extra pressure to create more chaos.
Well, as I was saying before we got cut off, having called defenses in this league for quite a while and just being a defensive coach, any defensive coach in this league will tell you they would love to be able to get consistent, legitimate pressure with 4. That way you can cover with 7. Because if you're covered with 7, then you've got them outnumbered because they've got 5 eligible. So any way you want to do it, you can play. You can play. 3 over 2, and that just helps you. I mean, it helps you a whole lot. So now that being said, you're talking about those 2 big guys up front. Those two big guys up front do 2 things. First of all, in the run defense, you're looking to collapse that center guard triangle, and that is huge. But you want them to go forward. I mean, when we had guys that could really get it up inside when I was coaching here, say that 2008 defense that we had, that was the really, really good defense. I mean, Keith Bullock and David Thornton can play behind the ball and let Albert Hainsworth and Kyle Vanden Bosch and those guys, because Washburn would use them in a lot of different places to be able to collapse that center guard triangle and then let those guys play off of it. That's very important. If you don't have 2 big guys that can control 3 gaps up front, then one of your linebackers is really going to have to play a fallback. I mean, he's going to have to be able to 2-gap it, and that's not how this defense works. This defense is a vertical defense. It's going forward. You're filling gaps, and so it's huge that those 2 guys up front, whether one's playing the 3 technique, which is on the outside shoulder of a guard, the other's playing the shade, which is inside between the center and the guard on the other side. If they can collapse those 3 of that center guard triangle by themselves, that's a big plus for you.
We're on with Coach Mack, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford, the South's most trusted Ford dealership.
Well, Coach, there's a lot of things that have changed about the National Football League since me and you were actually in the league. But one thing is still the same is how would you go about approaching, and give us an example of when you've gone against a rookie quarterback and the problems that it can bring with certain schemes and systems?
Well, the things that they have not seen yet is what you count on, because regardless of their physical ability, the things that they haven't seen, and so you always talk about pre and post snap looks, especially in the back end. You never want to be able to let the quarterback, regardless of how young he is or how experienced he is in the league, be able to read your mail pre-snap. I mean, you just can't do it. Whether you're going to play man-to-man, which we're going to a lot with these corners that they signed. They're going to play man-to-man, but you've got to give different looks, and it's up to the safeties and the linebackers to be able to give them some different looks, pre-snap, and then morph into what you want to do post-snap. So what you're trying to do in the back end. Now, I will say this, and I always used to tell my guys this: don't be bogeying or disguising enough that you disguise yourself right out of your responsibility. You can't do that. But giving them different looks, especially on different down and distances, that to me is extremely, extremely important for any quarterback. But the younger quarterbacks, they don't have enough time on task yet as having looked at that. So that was something that I can remember when Cam Newton first came in the league. We played him early. When I was here, we played him early, and when Schwartz was a defensive coordinator, and we bogeyed him to death in the first half. I mean, and he was very, 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 very confused. Now, later on, he got to where it didn't bother him as much. But you can't manufacture the experience, and they don't have the experience as far as to looking at it right now. They can they can forfeit to their natural ability, but you'd like to put as much indecision in them pre-snap and post-snap as you can.
Well, Coach, we're on with Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack, and you know defense just as well as anybody in this league. Kind of, give us a little bit about what Eberflus has shown over the years as a DC, because they kind of turned it up a notch, I think, after week 10 and really came together. And I don't know if that's got the sweat in the trade and everything else, but they really came together and became really a top 10 defense, not in ranking, but from that point forward. What is their defensive style, and what do they like to do? Looks like they're attacking.
Blaine, he's a 4-3 defense. He's always been a 4-3 guy, but what he really does a lot of out of that 4-3 front, whether he's going to play an over front, which is is moved to the close of the tight end side, or an under front, which is moved away. The thing that he's always done, even with his 4 people up front, is run a lot of games. And he gets a lot of movement, especially that, what we called, and I think everybody else in the league calls it too, a pirate stunt, which is a 3-man wrap down, around, just for a lot of penetration. And the other thing he does, if he can get you a nickel, he's gonna bring that nickel quite a bit.
Yeah, I saw that.
They've got a guy that can, their nickelback player can really, really blitz. Mm-hmm. And so he's done that quite a bit, but he's always been a 4-3 guy. And it's been a movement 4-3 up front. So you're going to have to be really heads up with the people that are going to get hats on a hats. Not only your 5 offensive linemen, your running backs and your tight ends also have to be very aware of the movement games up front, especially early.
Well, I know you've been a former coach. I don't know if you know the answer to this. We was listening to the OTP, and Callahan was talking about moving pieces or who would dress and who won't. Kind of take us through game day rules for the practice squad and elevation, or throughout the week of when you have to make those decisions, and what's that like being a coach when you have to make those decisions?
Yeah, well, the new rules are, it used to be if you wanted to bring somebody off the practice squad, you had to be able to clear waivers. Now you get 3 free moves per player. 3 free moves where you can elevate them and then revert them back to the practice squad without exposing them to waivers during the season. Okay, 3 moves per player. So it gives you a lot of leeway as far as being able to move guys back and forth. Now, the thing that you always, with a 16-man practice squad, Blaine, it's a lot different than when it was less than 16. That makes a huge difference. That enables you maybe not to carry as many at one position on your 53, but it gives you a chance to elevate on game day, out of certain positions, because you've got 16 on the practice squad, which is, if there's anything that came out for football of COVID, it was that, because they allowed more people on the practice squad. So what you do is weekly, as health is, and some of it is determined on who your opponent is and what you are going to line up in, what you're going to major in, offensively and defensively. You always have to figure the special teams, what their contribution is in that. But first of all, it depends on who's healthy, and then you start going with, and this week, are we better off with 4 tight ends, and can we go a little bit light on the edge, or do we need all of those guys and go a little bit light at some other position? That goes week to week, and depending on health and also depending on opponent.
There you have it, Coach Mack giving us the Mack attack.
Coach Brian Callahan spoke to the importance of running the ball effectively and efficiently, bringing up yards per attempt, EPA, and success rate. Beyond that, what else will be different about the run game this year in terms of personnel, scheme, responsibilities, et cetera, et cetera?
Well, it's different. I spent all morning on Zoom calls doing media in Chicago, and of course, this is not any secret. Starting with Earl Campbell, and then Eddie George and CJ2K, and right to Derrick Henry. The offense here with the Oilers/Titans has always run through, a single back. Well, you'll still have some single back stuff, but it will look different. I think there will be a lot more. You might see both of those backs in there at the same time together, but they're going to run the football, and I don't want people to get it misconstrued that this is going to be just a spread them out and a run and shoot team. That's not what it is at all. Because Bill Callahan, believe me, I've coached enough against him to know he cut his teeth on running the football. And he's got those guys with a physical mindset. But it's just not one centric back lined up 7.5 yards deep right behind the center that we've seen a lot of, especially through the years with the Titans/Oilers. It's going to be a different looking running game, but they will still feature the run.
J.C. Latham is going to see guys like Montez Sweat, Jermaine Johnson, maybe Hassan Reddick if he ends his holdout, Rashawn Gary, and that's just the first 3 weeks. But the schedule is littered with excellent pass rushers. How much is this trial by fire helpful for a young offensive tackle, and how do you measure his success beyond just those box score pressures allowed stats?
Well, I mean, he's got to learn. I mean, he's done everything he can to prepare himself for this moment. Starting with the excellent tutelage that he's getting from Bill Callahan, but you can't manufacture experience. You cannot manufacture the experience. He's going to have to live it. He's going to have to live it, and he's going to have to go through it, and he's going to have up and down times because everybody in this league, you're very right, Zach, you mentioned everybody in this league has got dudes that can bring pressure off the edge. That's what everybody is looking for. And so that's the life in the National Football League. And so he knows that. But as I say, you're going to see him grow this year, and he will have struggles, just like all of them have had their struggles, regardless of position. The first year in the league, because it is a different world from where they came from. I mean, that's just the truth.
With multiple new additions on the defensive roster, including the staff, and multiple starters not practicing or playing for a majority of this offseason, and not to mention trading for a new inside linebacker, just how long does it typically take for that amount of newness to gel on defense where communication, trust, and familiarity is key?
Well, it depends on the guys playing. It really does. I mean, I've experienced it, bringing guys in and they fit right in. I mean, but the experience I talked about, you can't manufacture experience. The guys that we were talking about, especially that we brought in, they're experienced football players. I mean, you talk about Ernest Jones, you talk about the two corners, you talk about the safeties. Those guys have played in the National Football League, and a whole lot of that is important. Now, playing together, that is valuable. That's why you have to lean on some of your guys that have been there already before, and it's up to the coaches too to help these guys at least get mentally back in sync with what they are doing here now. But at least when you're working with veteran players, you don't have to start at ground zero, and that's very, very important because starting at ground zero is completely different than saying, okay, X, what you call this is what we're calling that, and they say, oh, okay, I get it, because just the newness of playing in the National Football League is hard enough on players. And so if you've got a veteran player, you're not worried about them, the newness of playing in the league. You're just trying to get them assimilated into what you're doing. That doesn't take as long.
Well, that is Coach Mack. You can hear more of Coach Mack tonight on 104.5 The Zone at 6 p.m. He'll be on with Rhett Bryan for his Mack Talk every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Central Standard Time here on The Zone. And then you can also hear him on Titans Radio covering the games every Sunday and also on the official Titans podcast when he gets on there as well. So lots of Coach Mack left to hear for you guys here on the station. We appreciate Coach Mack, brought to you by Two Rivers Ford here in the South's most trusted Ford dealership.
Guys, thanks. See you.
Appreciate it, Coach.
When we come back, we're going to talk about the new college football AP poll that just came out, and we'll get our reactions from that. I'm Zach. He's Blaine. This is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. Final segment here for Blaine and Zach on this Tuesday, powered by all Four Seasons Garage Doors, and we're brought to you by our 1045 The Zone, and of course the Zone TV chat over on Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook Live, 615-737-1045 if you want to call in. But Blaine, the AP College Football poll came out. I mean, a couple of movements have caught my eye. And I'm sure University of Tennessee fans are not happy with their placement, even though they've moved up a couple of spots. But Georgia still 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Alabama 4. Oregon has been pushed out of the top 4 previously, and they fall all the way down to 7. And Notre Dame moves up 2 spots with their victory over Texas A&M. But University of Southern California, USC, moved up 10 spots. Okay? They moved up 10 spots after beating LSU with a late touchdown Sunday night in Las Vegas, last minute as well. You know what I'm saying? The loss dropped LSU to number 18, so they only dropped a few spots, LSU, but they moved up 10 spots ahead of the University of Tennessee, who last week was 15, and this week just moved up 1 spot to 14. Are you a little surprised by that?
Yeah, I would have to say so.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and maybe it has to do with the opponent.
Yeah.
Tennessee played. So they're still yeah, you did what you're supposed to do. We'll move you up 1 spot. But USC looked like a different team. And they look like they're in the Big Ten, right?
Right.
They look physical against an SEC opponent. So I think they probably valued. I don't know if I would have moved them ahead of Tennessee, though. I don't know about that one.
I mean, if you're dropping the other team 5 spots, but you're giving this team 10 spots, that seems a little disproportionate for a 7-point win that came down to 8 seconds left in the game.
Well, they were barely in the top 25, so you just say 10 spots, but it's literally they were 23rd, so almost not even the top 25. So what they showed by beating LSU to me that they were a top 15 team. Now it's a matter of where do you put them.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I looked at. I still wouldn't have put them ahead of Tennessee, even if it was just 1 spot. I wouldn't have done. I don't know if I don't think they're better than Tennessee.
Clemson drops from 14 to 25. They only scored 3 points against the number 1 team in the nation, Georgia. Obviously, Clemson has some name recognition and staying power, but there were probably other teams on the outside looking in that you probably could have gone with. Florida State drops completely out of the top 25 after an 0-2 start. They were ranked 10, which seemed 10 spots just did not make sense to me. When you're watching that game last night and you see 10 next to Florida State's name was a little odd, but they dropped completely out. But both those teams, as maybe you've seen on Twitter, both those teams are suing the ACC, and both those teams have yet to win a game. Just a little happenstance, I guess. A little coincidence.
Oh, the SEC?
ACC.
ACC.
Yeah.
It sounded like you said SEC.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah. So, when I look at it, it's always hard after that first week to really hone in on who's really in the top 15, because that's the hardest. I think we all know who are the top, tier teams. Notre Dame's a little bit surprising that they were, against A&M. For what it's worth, I don't know if A&M's a top 25 team, but they're in the SEC and they're in the, in that club right there in the middle, you would say. Oregon only beat Idaho by 10.
Yeah.
I know they dropped, but I don't know. I feel like Tennessee should be in their spot. I mean, there's just things I'm going to disagree until we get to see Tennessee against a, big time opponent. So NC State will be, which is 24. So they're playing a ranked team. If they beat them squarely, easily, and when I say easily, beat them by comfortably 21, I think it's fine. But they may not. They may beat them. It may be a good game until the end, and then they pull away at the end. I think they're going to beat them, and I think they're going to beat them handily.
Florida State is only the second-ranked team to lose twice before the first regular season poll was released, joining 1951 Kentucky. The Wildcats went from number 6 to number 17 while going 1-2 to start the season, losing at number 11 Texas and at Mississippi back in the day. So it's been a long time since something like Florida State has happened, where you're ranked and then you're suddenly unranked right away.
I don't know. You're a numbers guy. That was a little surprising to hear that because, preseason, I guess maybe it's because it's 2 losses, But preseason is rankings are based off of last season, and obviously Florida State. And to me, they're getting beat in the trenches, and then their quarterback play is just horrendous. I mean, he may not even get drafted. I'd be interested to see if they replace him and put somebody else out there.
Well, it's
just
interesting.
Cause,
so they're off. They're off
but
this
just
week.
Cause.
So they're off this week.
Oh, are they? Oh,
and then they come back and play Memphis. So here's my prediction because the football gods want to play a cruel joke on me. They're going to replace him with Brock Glenn, who is a from Memphis, by the way, Memphis, Tennessee high school 3-star recruit. He's going to come in and replace DJU, and he's going to end up beating Memphis, and they're going to be 1-2 to start the year. But just because the football gods hate me. So it's just a feeling I have that they're going to use this time to get right. Mike Norvell cannot lose to his old college team as well. So there's like so many storylines converging that's just hopefully the run game at University of Memphis can, really put them ahead and keep them, from doing anything, like that's going to make me mad. It's going to make me upset. So I'm just hoping.
They lost to Boston College.
I know.
And O'Brien.
Yeah, Bill O'Brien.
Oh, my.
It's funny to see the people that forgot that Bill O'Brien was coaching Boston College, and then you see all the tweets and everything. Yeah,
I completely forgot it. I was like, what? Yeah, they beat them in the trenches. It looked like the old Houston Texans.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny to see that.
They said his wife graduated from Boston College, and I don't know if that was a connect. They were saying that on the broadcast.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, that's what they were saying.
So Texas and at Michigan this weekend, the regular season meeting ever. The first regular season meeting ever is a top 10 matchup at the Big House. So they're in Michigan. Then you got Tennessee at NC State. And so that's going to be kind of an interesting little SEC, ACC ranked matchup. So it's interesting to see Georgia Tech is the first time they were ranked since, I believe, 2013.
Oh, good for them.
So just a bunch of interesting things that happen. A lot of movement here, Oregon falling and all this kind of stuff. It's
exciting time for college football.
It's exciting times, but it's still, we're just, heading into week 2. So the season is still early and there's a lot of movement to be made. And we're going to be moving right out of the way for 3HL coming up next. I'm Zach, he's Blaine, and this is Blaine and Zach on 104.5 The Zone. But in the meantime.
And in between time.
Peace.
Peace.